You're all very welcome. And this is the second, I believe, information webinar that we've done this year on moving to Canada on the International Experience Canada Visa for 2024. We've done these in partnership with the Eamonn O'Loughlin Irish Canadian Immigration Centre, or ICANN for short. So I'm just going to put up the agenda here for this evening. So this is the agenda for tonight's webinar. So we're going to cover a variety of areas of your journey to Canada and how to have the most stress-free and enjoyable experience once you arrive. So just to introduce ourselves, so myself and my colleague Lucia, who is doing the Lord's work in the background there, work with CrossCare Irish Diaspora Support Project. We're a free service funded by the Irish government to support Irish citizens both returning and moving to Ireland. Our work with those leaving Ireland mainly centres around providing up-to-date pre-departure information with those emigrating abroad to best prepare you for your journey. And you can also link in with we also like to help people link in with other organisations across the world who support Irish citizens and offer expert knowledge and advice. So just a little, that's some of the information there just on our own service. So we do obviously the moving abroad piece. If you are coming home, so after your immigration experience, we also offer support around access to statutory services such as social welfare, healthcare, housing and homeless supports. And for those who might be returning home in love and have found a Canadian partner, or those from a non-Irish background, we also offer help with the immigration system and visas as well. And as I said, we like to link people in with support organizations abroad, and that would bring me to our partners, ICANN in Toronto and Vancouver, who have kindly joined us this evening to give you a really, really in-depth information for your immigration experience on the visa. So I'm just going to pass over to the guys in ICANN now, who are going to give you more information on their service.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kathy Murphy, and I am the Executive Director here at ICANN. I'm not sure, Niall, can you let me know if the video is working?
Yeah, perfect.
Great. Thank you very much. So as Niall suggested, we are the Eamonn O'Loughlin Irish Canadian Immigration Centre. We're actually a national organization. So we happen to have a head office in Toronto, and we happen to have boots on the ground in Vancouver. But in fact, we serve the entire country of Canada. So wherever you're moving in Canada, it does not have to be Toronto or Vancouver. Perhaps you're going to Montreal or Ottawa or maybe even Calgary or Edmonton. You can actually access our services from any location in Canada. So please let your friends know as well. If you happen to go to Toronto or Vancouver, you will get to meet us in person. So today we have myself on the call, Executive Director, and then we have 2 out of our 3 team members on the call. Today you're going to meet our social care advisor, Gillian, who will be presenting after me. And I'm very pleased to invite our administrative assistant, Michelle Perry, just to pop on and say hello to you now. Are you there, Michelle?
Hi, everyone. My name is Michelle. I'm happy to be here.
We're delighted to have Michelle with us here in Toronto. Not joining us on the call today is our Career Resource Advisor, Rhonda, but I will be telling you a bit about her as the presentation goes on. It's probably going to be your first point of call will actually be Rhonda. So next slide, please. So the first thing we're going to talk about is getting prepared for your arrival. We're going to assume that all of you on the call have applied for an IEC work permit, either through the working holiday or the young professional stream. Maybe there's even someone on the call who's going to be utilizing the international co-op. Either way, you will all expect to receive what we call a port of entry letter. And so we just want to talk to you about what will happen when you arrive at the airport here in Canada. Wherever you land first in Canada, whether that's Toronto, Calgary, or Vancouver, you're going to present your port of entry letter, which gives you permission to apply for a work permit at the border. And when you present this port of entry letter, you will also have to present your valid and up-to-date passport and your insurance for proof of 2 years insurance. Now let's go back to the passport for a moment. Do make sure before you travel that your passport is valid for at least 2 years. The border officer can only provide you with a work permit that matches the end date on your passport. So if your passport is set to expire in under 2 years, we would recommend that you get a new passport now before you travel to Canada. And you can email us, or you can go onto the IEC's website to learn more about how that will impact the documents you already have. There will be some things you will need to update before traveling. It is far better to do that now than to update your passport once you get to Canada and then try to apply to extend your work permit. It's a bureaucratic nightmare, and we really would advise against it. The other thing you need to come to Canada as an Irish national is an electronic travel authorization. We call it an ETA. When you board your flight at the Dublin airport, you will be asked to present the ETA. That is linked to your passport. And if you have already been approved for your IEC working holiday or young professionals visa, then you have already been approved for an ETA. But it's just important for you to know that you have that document, that they will be scanning for that when they look at your passport at the airport. If you didn't have that, you wouldn't be able to board your flight to Canada. If you are going to get a new passport before you come, you will need to get a new ETA. That's really important. And if this is overwhelming, just reach out after this webinar. The other thing we want to talk about that happens at the port of entry is that you may be selected to present other documents. It's a random selection, and one of the documents you might be asked to present is proof of your 2 years insurance. Whether you're asked or not, you must have this insurance. If you don't have it and you're asked on the day, you will not be issued your work permit. If you have your insurance, but you've only bothered to pay for 1 year, you will only be issued a work permit for 1 year, and you will not be allowed to apply to extend it at a later date. So it's your responsibility to come ahead with your full 2 years insurance. You will hear on all sorts of social media platforms, I wasn't asked for insurance, my housemate wasn't asked for insurance. Lucky them. If you are asked, you must have it. And keep in mind that if you go home for Christmas and come back to Canada, you can be asked at any time to prove that you have your insurance and to prove that that insurance was good from your first landing in Canada. So this is non-negotiable. And if you're a risk taker, it is very random. The other thing you must have is proof of funds to support your stay in Canada. That is under instruction from the IEC, $2,500 Canadian on a bank statement that is no more than 1 week old. So it needs to be current. Now, just keep in mind that $2,500, that is a stipulation from the IEC. That is not nearly enough money to come and get set up for your 2 years in Canada. You're going to need to pay for accommodation when you get here. Then you're going to need to put down first and last month's rent on an apartment once you find a roommate. Maybe you're going out on your own. Accommodation is very expensive here. So first and last month's rent can be extremely costly. And keep in mind that the majority of accommodation here comes unfurnished. Airbnb is the exception, but you're not going to be spending much time in an Airbnb. So you also have to buy some used furniture. You're going to need your groceries. Groceries are much more expensive here, and it may take you a while to get work here. So make sure you come with way more than $2,500 based on your particular lifestyle. The other thing we'd like to point out is please do check your work permit before you leave the airport. So whether you're coming to Toronto, getting your work permit, and then transiting to a flight to Vancouver, you must check your work permit at the first port of entry. So when the officer hands you your permit, I don't care if there's 300 people in line behind you, you have the right to take a moment, read through the work permit very carefully. You're looking for a few things. One, is your name spelled correctly? It should match your passport. If there's any issue there, you may have trouble getting your social insurance number. So check for your name spelling, and then be sure to check the expiry date on the work permit. We are seeing many, many mistakes happening at the border with the dates of expiration. And once you leave the airport, it is very difficult to get it fixed. It can be fixed, but it is timely and frustrating, and there's a lot of red tape. So you're going to do yourself a favor, take 30 seconds and check everything over. If you find an error, you are well within your right to query that politely with the border officer. And if you're not happy with their response, you're well within your right to very politely and respectfully ask to speak to a supervisor. And if you know that you have the 2 years insurance, and if you have your port of entry letter that says you've been approved for the 2-year work permit, you should be leaving the airport with a 2-year work permit. So you must advocate for yourself if you do spot a mistake. Next slide, please, Niall. So I'm going to talk to you a bit now, very briefly, about employment and networking in Canada. The best piece of advice any of us on this webinar can give you today is to please register and attend our free weekly employment webinar. This is done with our career coach, who's listed here today, our career resources advisor, Rhonda McDowell. And Rhonda is an absolute whiz at this kind of stuff. And you can take this webinar before you even leave Ireland. And we would advise you to do so that you can really prepare for your journey to employment in Canada and so that you can mitigate your expectations. It is very different here. You might find a job as a barista quite quickly. You might find a job in a pub clearing tables quite quickly. And if that's what you're looking for here, a true working holiday, then you're very welcome to that. But if you're looking for something else, and if you already have a career back in Ireland that you're hoping to grow in Canada, you can expect anywhere from 2 to 4 months to find the career role that you really want. You might find temporary work to tide you over, but getting that real career role that's even close to what you've got in Ireland right now, or that's a step up, can take many, many months. So you can get yourself prepared by checking in with Rhonda and attending the webinar. And we also have a number of career resources guide on our website that we would advise you to read in advance. It will really lessen the shock when you get here of how different it is. Networking is something we talk about at length in the webinar, so I'm not going to go into that in detail, but I would invite you to peruse through our networking guide on the website now, and also to listen to a podcast that's listed here with a link called You Want Me to What? And it's a step-by-step guide on how to network in Canada and to help you to understand that you really will get your big career role here in Canada based on the people you meet through your networking. It's not through Indeed in Canada. So please do join us in the webinar. It's probably going to be the best thing you do in your journey with ICANN. If you're coming to Canada and you're looking for work in the service industry, please do look at the link here called Serve Right. These are online courses that are province specific. And if you are going to be working in a bar or a restaurant where alcohol is served in any province in Canada, you will need to complete the provincial equivalent and licensing for the Serve Right program. So in Ontario, it's called Smart Serve. In Prince Edward Island, it's called Serving It Right. So it depends on the province, and it's a different certificate for every province. So you will need to get that before you apply for a job in the service industry and the hospitality sector in Canada. If you're coming and you want to work in construction, there are a few ways you can look for construction jobs. They're very, very much community-based. So join the Facebook pages for the Irish communities in the cities to which you are going. For example, Irish and New in Vancouver, Irish and New in Toronto. You can always do a search in the search tab there and run through to see where people are working in some of the big construction companies in those 2 cities. You can also network with the GAA. It's a lot of word of mouth in construction. And of course, the local Irish pubs are still a great way to find a laboring job in construction. With respect to the other industries, we're not going to go into them here. There are far too many, but do join the webinar and do look at all of our guides online. The last thing we want to mention to you is a social insurance number. This is a number that you must have to work in Canada, and you can only get it if you have a valid work permit. Another reason to make sure that your work permit is correct. After you are issued your work permit at the airport, you will then reach out to an office called Service Canada to either go in person or to make an appointment online to apply for your social insurance number. Once you have that number, you will be able to work for any Canadian employer. Now, I'm going to pass it on to our social care advisor. It's my pleasure to introduce a member of our team, Gillian Goulding, and Gillian is coming to you today from Vancouver. Over to you, Gillian.
Thanks, Kathy. Hey, everyone. Thanks for joining us this evening. So I'm ICANN's social care advisor and I'm based out of Vancouver. But like Kathy was saying earlier, we provide support to Irish people living across Canada. So no matter where you decide to move to in Canada, you can reach out to me with any questions regarding any of this. So the first thing here is ICANN's mental health resources page. So everything in blue here is hyperlinked, so you can click on them afterwards when the slides are sent out. And on the mental health resources page, we've divided it up into different sections where you can see loads of resources, depending whether it's for your general health, your mental health, your well-being. If you were ever worried about yourself or others with addictions, there's loads of different resources on the website. So you can look there before you come or when you arrive at different resources available to put your mind at ease. My main role as social care advisor here is like this. I do webinars with the team. We also do newcomers events that I'll do and different wellbeing events here as well. But the main part of my role is actually one-to-one consultations. So people will usually email me or else call me and we will go over what services they're looking for. So I'll provide them information and signposting on any mental health, general health or wellbeing services that they're looking for across Canada. Because I'm an immigrant myself, I know what it's like when you first move over and you're trying to understand, how do I find a doctor? How do I find a counsellor? Different health and wellbeing services that you'd be looking for, and Google can be a bit overwhelming. So any questions you have prior to coming, feel free to email. And of course, when you arrive, you can email and we'll set up a call if you want to go over any services. You can see there a list of all the different ones that we have there on the slides, where I was talking about doctors, counsellors, addiction supports, hospitals is a big one that people are looking for, sexual health clinics, helplines, community centres. And then free and low cost services is something that people are always asking for, because like Kathy said, even though you're coming over with a base bit of money, things can be expensive when you're getting set up. So there is a lot of free and low cost services available. And then a very important one is provincial healthcare. So a lot of Irish people don't know when they're moving over to Canada that fortunately Canada has a provincial healthcare system and it's different requirements depending on the province you decide to live in. So if you live in Vancouver, it'll be different to, let's say, what you'll be entitled to in Ontario if you move to Toronto. So it's just good to know that it's different in each province. We have done up a whole guide here, a newcomer's guide to applying for healthcare in Canada. So that's on our mental health resources page. So I'd recommend taking a look over that because it's good to have an awareness of what this is about. And like I was saying, each province is done a bit differently and they also have different requirements. Some of them require for you to be working full-time to be eligible to get provincial healthcare. Some of them require for you only to be working over 20 hours a week. So it just depends on the province you move to. When you do get provincial healthcare approved, it's amazing because you will get a healthcare card, you'll have a public health number, and once you have that, while you're living in Canada, you'll be able to access, let's say, the doctor for free, for visits for free. And then depending on the province you're in, again, there might be a lot of things covered under your provincial healthcare. Like if you needed referrals for like an MRI or an X-ray, some people get surgeries covered, so there is a range of different things. It's really worth your while to get it. Like Kathy was saying, you do need your 2 years health insurance coming into Canada. And even if you hear of other people cancelling it because when they got their provincial healthcare, they decided to cancel it, you really can't do that because it is still a requirement of your IEC work agreements that you do have the 2 years health insurance. So don't, like Kathy was saying, make sure you keep that for the entirety of the 2 years. Even if you get your provincial healthcare, they'll ask you as well often when you have hospital visits, about that private health insurance too. So make sure that you do keep it as well. But that's one that I would really recommend when you do land and once you're getting sorted and stuff, make sure you look into the provincial healthcare and get signed up once you're eligible to do so. So we can go on to the next slide, please. Okay, and so before you come over as well, and when you arrive, like I'm sure most of you are on social media, and social media, I think before you come is somewhere where a lot of people go to look for information. So you can follow us on our social medias. There's a link there to our Facebook, ICANN's Facebook, and our Instagram. throughout the week, we do different posts. So every day of the week, there's different posts which are really informative. And on Mondays, we do Monday morning mental health awareness tips. So if you give us a like or a follow and you know, you're just scrolling on your phone, you'll see different tips that are going to pop up on your phone. And it might just be information that's really useful to you that you just didn't know about and you didn't even think to Google or look for information on. It'll just pop up on your phone. So for the Monday morning mental health awareness tips, we like to do, like, sometimes we'll just do a regular post, you know, like throughout the month on the Mondays about different things, like reminding people about their preventive healthcare, like I was just talking about, or reminding them about the services we offer. But a lot of the time throughout the year as well, you'll see that different campaigns that we'll focus on for a whole month. So each Monday, there'll be a different tip or resource shared on that campaign that we're doing. So you'll see here a few examples of ones that we've done in the past, is like essential steps for looking after your health and mental health while living in Canada. So that month we would have done different resources every week on that. Positive mental health in the workplace. So we run this one every year. It's a really popular one, and it's all about how to keep, you know, your mental health and well-being good while you're in your workplace, and, you know, different resources to help. Another one we run every year is Lads, It Happens to Us All. So that one's specifically aimed towards men's mental health and how, you know, there's different resources available here in Canada for men to support them with their mental health, and also tips and tricks for people, you know, like support people as well to support men. So we run that campaign every year. And then opioid awareness is a really important one that we also have been running the last few years. And this is you can, when you go onto Facebook, you can actually type into the search button. The search button will be your best friend in all those Facebook pages. You can type into the search button any of these afterwards, and you'll actually see the different posts that I'll be talking about will come up, you know, on your screen. So for the opioid awareness one, we do this one because it's really important, because there is an opioid crisis happening in Canada. It's really good if you're going to be living here to be aware about, you know, what this entails, and know the different keywords that are listed here below with the useful links, because it's good to have an awareness about what these words mean. You'll hear people talking about them, and it's good for yourself to know about them. So fentanyl is, I'd advise you for the 4 here, it's good to click on them all and just have a read and grow your awareness. I'll give you a brief intro into fentanyl. It's an opioid pain reliever here. It's used a lot in hospitals as a pain reliever, but it can also be sold legally on the streets. And unfortunately, when people move over, and if people are deciding to buy like different sorts of street drugs like cocaine, MDMA pills, they may be contaminated with fentanyl. Fentanyl, because it's an opioid pain reliever, a few grains of it, if it's ingested in the wrong way, is enough for people to overdose. So it can be very lethal. So it's good for people to have an awareness that it can be mixed in with different drugs here. So it's good to be aware of the effects of it and what to do. Like, so when you click on that link, it'll tell you what an opioid overdose would look like, what to do if you believe someone's having an opioid overdose, you know, and obviously contacting emergency services. So it's good to be aware about that, about what fentanyl is. You'll hear people talk about it. Naloxone's the next one. Naloxone then is a medication that you can administer if you believe someone's having an opioid overdose due to fentanyl. So you can go into any of the pharmacies here. The government of Canada is great at, you know, like pro-safe drug use and prevention here. So like, it's great that they give out these naloxone kits for free in the pharmacy. So you just go into the pharmacy. Shoppers Drug Market and London Drugs are big ones here. But you just go in and you ask to speak to the pharmacist and say, hey, I'm just interested in learning more about naloxone. Can I have one of the free naloxone kits? And they'll actually teach you how to administer it as well. So it's really, really useful to know. And the way naloxone works is if someone is having a fentanyl overdose and they get some naloxone, it'll help them while emergency services are on the way. So really useful to know about those 2 things, and that the naloxone kits are free. And then there is other services throughout Canada. You can click on this link, Get Your Drugs Tested. So there's great services here where you can, if you know anyone that chooses to take drugs or yourself, you can actually go into some of these places if you're in one of the bigger cities, and they'll just test the substance that people are planning to use, and they'll let you know whether there is signs of fentanyl in it or not. They can also give you take-home fentanyl test strips, which people use as well to test themselves. And then if you live in remote areas of Canada, they also have a mailing service. So very different. So like, it's great to know that all these services are available. Cannabis is legal in Canada, but it's good to know like where it's legal to smoke it, where it's not, and all the different laws. So we have another link there that it's really useful to read and grow your awareness on that before you come. And then the next link there is just about the addictions. So, you know, often when people move abroad, this is something that can come up for yourself or for, you know, someone that you're living here with. So if you're ever concerned for yourself or anyone else and you want any information on addiction support, that would be your first point to call there. You can check and they'll show you services across Canada. And you could also reach out to the social care advisor as well, and we'll signpost you. And then we do have a Spotify. So I would really recommend, if you're someone who enjoys listening to podcasts when you're doing the housework or out for a walk, we do have a Spotify, and there's loads of different podcasts there. There's podcasts, you know, on mental health and wellbeing services, about how to sign up to your provincial healthcare, with free counselling services for Irish people. So loads of mental health ones, but then there's also other ones on like networking, you know, like Kathy was talking about earlier, and it's so useful to listen to them because there's great guest speakers on them, and it's just really good to kind of get yourself in the Canadian mindset and, you know, what the normal is here. So there's loads of different ones on the Spotify channel you can check out. And then that's just a reminder that all of ICANN services are free and confidential, and that's just a link again to our mental health resources page. So if you have any questions on those two slides, you can reach out to me. And we'll move on now to the next slide, please. So settling in, so you'll see here, that's a photo from one of our newcomer events. That would have been the coffee morning over in Toronto, in ICANN's head office in Toronto. So we run these free in-person events in Toronto and Vancouver, and it's a great opportunity to meet other newcomers. It can be lovely, like it's great, you come in, it's very, you know, casual, you come in, have a cup of tea, and you're welcome to ask any questions, you know, since you've moved that, you know, you didn't know the right place to ask the questions. No question's a silly question, we've heard them all. So it can be great to come in, meet other newcomers, make connections, and then we'll also give you information, like useful information then as well. You know, if you've asked all your questions, then we'll also give you useful information on settling in, essential to-dos when you first arrive, just as a reminder. You know, we can answer questions when you're looking for accommodation and employment. But like Kathy was saying, we'll usually just signpost you to Rhonda's amazing employment webinar, which really is such a great tool for people when they first get here. So we'd really welcome you, if you're arriving in Toronto or Vancouver, to come along and come to one of these events, and you can ask us any questions. And then I run the one in Vancouver. So yeah, so they're just a really good way to meet people here. So you can register here under our events page, and there you'll see all of our events. So that's for the newcomers events, and you'll also see, when you go onto the event page, you'll see the links to the employment webinar, and then you might see any other webinars that may be happening that month. And then we also have on our website, the website is like an amazing tool with so much information. Again, search bar is your best friend for everything. You can search whatever you want and it'll signpost you. But an amazing part of the website is the essential guides. So there's a section under the essential guides called Upon Arrival, and there's so many different guides there that could be very useful for you to read before you move over, with different information that you might not even like thought about before you come. So I definitely would signpost you to that section of the website. And then we can go to the next slide, please. Oh, just one there. So yeah, this is just a really useful one about settling in accommodation. So like Kathy was saying earlier, you know, with your funds that you want to come over, you also, you know, it's really good to be aware for accommodation. It's very different to Ireland in the fact that most leases here, they'll run from the first of the month. So, you know, if you have already booked your flights or you're planning to book your flights, it's good to keep in mind that it's the first of the month that the leases will usually run. Occasionally it'll be the 15th of the month, but more than likely it would be the first. So it's good to have temporary accommodation set up, like, you know, whether you're subletting or Airbnb before you come, because, you know, if you come mid-month, you won't probably have somewhere till the 1st or perhaps the 15th. So we have an accommodation guide there, that's in blue again, you'll see. So I would advise like looking over that, and it'll go over, like Kathy was saying, a lot of places here are unfurnished. So it'll go over different tips and tricks on when you're, you know, getting your apartment furnished. There's lots of like buy nothing groups here in Canada, or Facebook Marketplace is really popular for getting furniture. So there's loads of different tips there, and it also will signpost you to the next link about knowing your rights as a tenant. So, you know, if you've been a tenant in Ireland or you've lived in other parts of the world, you'll know that, like, you know, each place that you live in, there can be different tenancy rights and responsibilities. So we also have a link to that page as well, just so you're aware about what your rights are. And it's great. In each province here, you can call up to ask the tenancy board different questions if things you're not sure of. So I think that's my slides done now. If you want to move on, Niall, I think that might be my last one. Okay, thanks so much.
Thanks so much, Gillian. Thank you. Sorry, I'm just trying to get my camera back on here. There we are. Thanks so much. So yeah, thanks so much to Kathy, Gillian, and Michelle for all of that information, which I'm sure will be extremely helpful for anyone making the big move. I think is that all the slides from yourselves?
Yes.
Yes, great stuff. So just before we get on to the Q&A piece, I just wanted to also point out some helpful resources that live on the Crosscare website, diasporasupport.ie, which will be of use to you before you leave. So our website has a Leaving Ireland hub where you can find lots of information and general tips for moving abroad, as well as a section on looking after your mental and physical well-being while navigating this big change in your life. We also have an essential document checklist, as well as some blog pieces from people that have already gone through the emigration experience and shared their own experiences of how to navigate moving abroad and starting a new life overseas. And we recently did have a blog piece from Laura Healy, who wrote about her experience on the IEC moving from Cork to Vancouver. And I think it's really, really helpful to read the experiences of others. That can be really helpful when you're planning your own move and the tips and tricks that they've kind of experienced themselves. So do check that out on our website, diasporasupport.ie. So that's just both ourselves and ICANN's contact information on our website, our phone numbers, and our email addresses for any questions you might have.